Hey, what is up, you guys? ADI Samurai here. Man, it's been a long time since I've done a video. I think it's been like 4 months or something like that. I kind of took a break. I've still been around the community, still watching videos and whatnot. But I kind of stepped away from comic books for a little bit because I was kind of going crazy and spending a lot of money on comics and just needed to really take a break and take care of some other things. But I do have a haul here. It's my first haul like I said, in a long time, and it's different. It's not comic books. I have a lot of things that I like to collect, a lot of interests, from back in the day and whatnot. Whether it's toys or it's vinyl records or card games or comic books, whatever. I like to collect a lot of different things. So I wanted to show you guys a collection that I picked up of Battletech, which was a collectible card game that came out in 1996. It was based off of the tabletop MechWarrior game that came out in the 80s. And it was a really, I feel like it was a really awesome game. It was one of my favorites. Magic the Gathering had come out in 93, and so, everybody was playing Magic. And then Battletech came out, and this was also done by Wizards of the Coast and Richard Garfield, who's the same guy that created Magic. And Battletech came out. It was like a breath of fresh air. It was big mechs battling each other, and the rules. I feel like the rules of the game were really awesome. It kind of took some elements of Magic and kind of fine-tuned them into something different. But I ended up picking up. I got a starter deck. And this is the first edition starter deck. I don't know if I'm going to open it up on camera for this video, but I may end up doing some like pack opening or box opening type stuff in other videos. But this is the starter deck. Came with 60 cards, rule book, came with a 6-sided die. That was one of the other things that was kind of the random element of the game, was that you also used 6-sided die. And then I got a box of limited first edition booster packs, so 36 packs in there. I don't know if I'm going to open it, yet. I mean, I may open it. Just it kind of depends on what I want to do. So that's kind of awesome that I got that stuff. Really happy to get some of the first edition stuff. So the other thing that I wanted to show, which I'm really excited about, is I bought a collection. So when I got back into the game, I really wanted to just buy a bunch of cards so that I could build decks, teach my wife how to play, teach some friends how to play. And I found a guy, and these cards here, these are just some rares. I went through and pulled out all the rares. It was about, I'd say probably like 110, 120 rares in there. And it's a little bit of all the different sets. So there were 7 sets in the game. It spanned from 96 to the end of 98. And these cards here, like this card here, I believe is from the Commanders set. And you can see the way that the card looks there. But in the original, like the first, if I can find a mech here, so you can see what it looks like. So this is kind of like what the first 5 sets looked like. That's kind of the look of the cards. And then they did the limited and unlimited sets. Then they did Counter-Strike, Mercenaries, MechWarrior, and Arsenal, and they all had this kind of look to them. Then they came out with Commander's Edition, and they changed the way the cards looked. So they kind of, like, instead of saying what faction they come from, it's got like little symbols down over here on the left. They kind of move things around a little bit. And then Crusade was the last expansion after Commanders, was the expansion to Commanders, and that was it. So it was I wanted to get a collection that kind of had a little bit of everything, and the collection has cards from all sets. So I'm just going to kind of like flip through here. I went through and found basically all the rares. I found some really good lists online as far as like the card sets, the rarities, and whatnot. So it's been really fun going through this. There's a lot of cards that I remember, some that I don't remember, some that I hadn't even seen. Like I stopped playing, I think, after Arsenal. Saw a little bit of the Commanders stuff, and then like Crusade, I didn't see any of the cards from Crusade. So I was pretty excited to see that there were cards from Crusade in there. I remember that card. So there's different commands, there's pilots, there's units, There's plenty of resources in here to build decks from. So it's yeah, like I said, it's pretty exciting to kind of dig back through this stuff because we had a pretty solid group of people that we played with back in the day at the card shop. So see, here's the unlimited, which is the green, same as the limited set that I showed you earlier, just green bordered instead of black bordered. I don't know if you can actually see that, the glare on there. But some really cool artwork, some really great synergies. I think that with the game, we had a lot of really good people. We had we had a bunch of tournaments back in the day, and it was just a lot of fun. Having multiplayer games. So I'm really looking forward to like jumping back in. I think I got some kind of here's some vehicles. So these vehicles were from um, the Arsenal set. That's when they brought vehicles in, and I think they probably had them in Commanders and Crusades. But vehicles were one of the reasons why I think a lot of people stopped playing when Arsenal came out, because it was a mech that was, or not a mech, but it was a unit that was faster than a fast mech, at least in some regards. They were just so powerful, and you could get them out really quick. They were cheap to cast, and they were overwhelming. But I believe that later on they changed the ruling on vehicle cards so that they weren't as powerful, which is good. Berserker, that's one of my favorites. I love the artwork too. I mean, there's some really kick-ass artwork in this stuff. If you can actually zoom in there. Oh, maybe not. Probably just too much glare. But yeah, and then like there's stuff in here from Commanders. There's stuff from Crusade, and that stuff's really difficult to find. The Commanders and the Crusade stuff. I've looked all over for packs of that stuff. The starter decks that I showed you guys earlier, that was from the base set, and those are just random. They're not like pre-built decks or anything. But when the Commanders came out, they actually had pre-built decks. So here's some kind of like some big nasties, like Kodiak. I think this was like the big mech. Look at that artwork too. Gosh, that's so freaking cool looking. Let me get the glare off of there. Oh, come on. I'm not going to zoom in. A Thor Summoner. There's a Widowmaker and Prometheus. Those were some like kind of big nasty cards. The thing with those though is they cost so much to get out that like unless it was like a multiplayer game, you probably weren't gonna get those out. But yeah, I mean it's like I said, it's really exciting. It'll be a lot of fun like going through this stuff and putting together some decks and seeing what I can do, and then just kind of like I said, share with friends and teach some people how to play, because it really is a great game. It's probably one of my favorites from the 90s, and I think one of the failures of it was I think they were trying to get a lot of people that played the tabletop to kind of switch over into playing the card game. But if you're a tabletop player, you're a tabletop player. You're probably not going to switch over to cards. You already have money invested in that particular game. So a lot of the people that I played with were card players. And Battletech had some really fun mechanics to it. Had a little bit of randomness, very tactical. And I think it's a game that really you could add things to it. I mean, it seems like it's wide open. There's one way to win, which is making your opponent run out of cards. But it seems like there's a lot of other things that you could do to the game, like whether you have base cards or you have objectives or whatever, to really turn it into something that's bigger than what it started out as. But that's all I got for you guys. I hope everybody's doing well out there. I just wanted to kind of share something fun from my past that I'm getting back into, and share this little collection that I got. And in the future, I may end up doing like some pack openings, open up a starter deck, maybe talk a little bit about how to play the game, once I get some decks built, and maybe even talk about decks. But there's a lot of other card games back in the 90s that I really enjoyed. Another one was Netrunner. There was Shadowrun. So I may end up picking up some of those like failed CCG games that were a blast to play, and maybe share those with you as well. But like I said, that's all I got. I hope everybody had a great holiday. I will have comic books again in the future. I'll probably have a lot of different collectibles, like I mentioned earlier on in the video. But you guys all have a good one. All right, cheers.